How's it going, friends? What's going on? What we're talking about today is we are going to be solving equations with one variable, but on those one variable solving, we've got to deal with this situation. Like, what happens when like the variable drops off and it disappears? What? What? Typically, in the past, we've seen here's a super simple equation like that, and you rock solving it, and you get this. And what does that mean? What does that mean? That means this equation has one solution and one solution only, specifically 5/3, meaning you can take 5/3 and drop it in for the variable, and then you check to see if that equals 10. You multiply these and you get 5, so you get 5 plus 5 equals 10, and yes, it makes a true statement. Woohoo! That's true. So yes, there's a solution, and there's one of them. But the question is, what happens if when you're doing that for some strange reason, for some strange setup of the problem that some math teacher makes, what happens when there's no more variable left? And we're all like, what just happened? So what do? So we got here. So here's the situation. We've got, you've seen this before last year, but I want to emphasize it one more time because it's super important. It's a concept in math that comes throughout all of math. In particular, what happens when there's infinitely many solutions, and what does that even mean? So that's what we're looking at right now. So when we have a situation like number one and we're going to solve it, and you're like, oh, I know how to solve this problem. So you're going to set up and you're going to distribute, and you're going to get 2x plus 14, and then you get equals 2x plus 14, and some of y'all are like, whoa, that's the same thing on both sides. Yes, that's totally accurate. But what happens if you don't notice and you're on autopilot and you're going to solve this and you're like minus 2x, and you do the next step, right? And you're like 14 equals 14. What does that even mean? And the answer is that true? And you're going to be like, yes, that's true. And so what is the solution? Really, what that means is anything and everything is a solution to x, meaning that any number, no matter what that number is, if you put it in there in that equation for x, it's going to make a true statement on either side, which is totally crazy. Here, check it out what happens. Like if I turn around and I drop in the number like 10 for fun, check to see if that makes a true statement. Right? You know what I mean? Over here we get 10 plus 7 is 17. And over here we get 20 plus 14. Over here on the left we get 34. Over here on the right we get 34. What? 10 works. You can keep trying that with any number that your heart desires and you're going to get a true statement. What does that even mean? That means that any number for x, we can take any number, whatever it is, and we can put it in the spot for x, and we can get a true statement. So what do we say when we have that? We say that that's infinitely many solutions, meaning we can take an infinite amount of numbers and we can put it in the equation and it's going to work. It's going to be amazing. Okay? That's what we say. There's an alternative. So what happens when we have a situation like number 2 and something else happens? So for instance, if I turn around, here's one way to do the problem. You can minus 4 both sides. You could get x equals x minus 1, and then you minus x, and we get 0 equals negative 1. Does that make any sense? Well, I mean, we did the math right? But we have an equation there that doesn't actually make sense. So this can't happen, right? So we say no. And our reply is no solution, which is the opposite of, kind of the opposite of infinitely many solutions, meaning infinitely many means there's as many as you could pick, any number works. No solution means no number's going to work when you put it in there for x. None, 0, zip, nothing. 0 numbers are going to work. 0 expressions are going to work. Absolutely nothing's going to work for when you put it in for x and you simplify it to see if it makes a true statement. It's just not going to make a true statement. Never, ever. So we say that there is no solution. which is different than up here when we went to go solve it and we got one solution, a single solution. An infinitely many solutions, no solution, one solution. Those are often in our answers or our options. So here we go. Linear equations do not always have one single number that's a solution. Sometimes they have an infinite amount of numbers that work, namely infinitely many solutions, or sometimes there are no numbers that work in the equation, no solution. Okay? So some linear equations have infinitely many solutions, which means you can pick your favorite number and it works. Some equations have no solution, like no number that works. And some equations have one solution, a single solution that works. In terms of equations with one variable, in the context of Algebra 1, what we're looking at, these are our options that we're going to have. Okay? So if you have a situation when so how many number solutions? If there is one solution, when you solve a problem, you get something like x equals 5, or like x equals 86, or x equals negative 11 billion, right? 11 billion is not really a number, by the way, just in case you forgot. That's just something I say when I mean anything, or a really big number or a really small number. Anyway, number of solutions. Another option would be infinitely many. Infinitely many. Some people abbreviate that like this. Yeah. So infinitely many solutions. That means any number works. Any number works. Any number slash expression would work to make it a true statement in the end. What does it look like? You get something like 5 equals 5, or 0 equals 0, or like negative 11 billion equals negative 11 billion. Blah, blah, blah. Or like 3x equals 3x, meaning the same exact thing on both sides. Or like 3x plus 1 equals 3x plus 1. As long as it's the same exact thing on both sides, that means you're going to end up getting the infinitely many solution option. Then you have some solutions with no solution, none, 0. You get something like 0 equals 1, or like 15 equals negative 35. Something where there's no more variable in there and it drops out and it doesn't make a true statement. All right? Let's take a look at these two problems. So here's a problem. What is the value of x when we deal with? So when we go to solve it, distribute on that side, and we get 4x plus 6, and then on the left side, 4x plus 6. We have a situation where we have the same exact thing on both sides. But if you don't catch it and you just keep going, right? Like, let's do this. If you minus 6 from both sides, you get 4x equals 4x. We have the same thing on both sides of the equation again. Or if you like minus 4x, you get like 0 equals 0. That's an infinitely many situation. Here you have an infinitely many situation. Every time you have something on both sides of the equal sign being the exact same, it's an infinitely many solution situation. Many solutions on that problem. Okay? Means any number works when you substitute it in to solve for x. Now, if we have another situation like this one, check it out. We're going to distribute 6x minus 5 equals 6x plus 12, and we go to solve. So like collect the variables on both sides. So I'm going to move this to the left. Minus 6x minus 6x. We get negative 5 equals 12. That doesn't match. Since that doesn't match, we have no solution. Here we go. Do another problem. Number 3, what is the value of d in the equation? Okay, let's go. Start cranking. Distribute. We're distributing right here. Half d plus 3 plus 9 equals distribute. Half times 6 is 3. Half times negative d is negative 1/2 d. And then plus 4. Okay, here we go. Let's do it. Now, half d 3 plus 9 is 12. And we have this and this. 3 plus 4 is 7. We have negative a half d. When we combine like terms on the right, left, combine like terms on the right. Now we're going to turn around and keep going. So I'm going to move the variables to the left. So I'm going to add a half d, add a half d. So on the left, we get 1d plus 12 equals 7. Ooh, I almost wrote 17. That's not the right one. Plus equals 7. And minus 12, minus 12. We get 1d equals negative 5. Well, we don't need the 1 there. It's just d equals negative 5. So in this case, we have one solution to this equation. Yep. Okay. So now, here's the situation. This was typically designed to do in a group, but instead of that, we're just going to have you go ahead and on this, I'm going to want you to pause the video, create an equation that has one solution, an equation that has infinitely many solutions, and then an equation that has no solution. And then when we get back into class, we're going to share these and we're going to look at them together as a team. So you're going to create or find equations. Like if you want to straight up Google this, that's totally cool. If you want to make it yourself, that's totally cool. Remember, make one that's not from the above ones, not these, okay? But make different examples of like an equation with one solution, an equation with infinitely many solutions, and an equation with no solution. If you need to, rewind the video to figure out what that means, like at the top, the original description that I gave during that. Replay that, think about that again, try to express that on this question. All right, cool, thanks. Take care, peace.